Hi, my name is John Clarkson. I'm a technical writer with the Lync product group, and I'm here today to demonstrate how to use the contextual data methods and events that are provided by the Lync 2010 SDK. You can see by the slide here that the demonstration will break down into two parts. First of all, we're going to create and register two different contextual applications, one for sending and one to receive contextual data, and then we'll use a couple of different scenarios to exercise the different methods and events and see how you use them and what they do. And you can infer from looking at this slide that there's two types of contextual data. The first type is initial context data, which is typically used as introductory content. It's up to 2K in size. And the second type is context data, which is typically used for general context updates in a conversation and can be up to 64K in size. Okay, let's go ahead and build that first application. I'm going to use the Lync Silverlight application template. And when I get into the XAML window here, I'm going to delete some of the default XAML that the application template added, and I'm going to copy paste some XAML I've got in a notepad file. And then we'll talk about the properties that I'm setting here with this XAML. First of all, there's the conversation contextual info class, which contains all this context data. The application ID property off that class contains the application GUID. Application data is the actual initial context data we're sending. The subject property is just some text at the top of the conversation window. There's the IM control, Start Instant Messaging button. And the source property is the actual SIP URI that we're going to be sending the IM to. And there's a couple of buttons that we'll use to run events, or excuse me, methods. So now I'm going to go to the code window and I'm going to copy paste some C# code off a notepad file and overwrite the content of the user control class. And we'll take a look at this code as soon as I've added a using statement. I want to add a reference to the conversation namespace. And I'll go ahead and build the application, make sure we're all right. And we'll take a look at the begin send initial context method, which of course sends initial context data. And you see there's an object in the parameter list here, and that is a dictionary object. See right up here. And that dictionary object contains the application ID and my application data. And then there's the begin send context data method, which sends context data. And you see as an app ID parameter and a data value, data type parameter, and there's a callback method. And we'll take a look at how this application is registered on the computer. The value for the registry entry is the same as our app ID value here. The internal URL value contains the path to the application, and there's a name value. So I'll go ahead now and take a look at the other computer, which is our computer we're going to be receiving data on. And again, I'm going to create a Lync Silverlight application, and I'm going to delete some of the default XAML and replace it again, copy paste off a notepad file, and we'll take a look at the XAML that I'm adding. I'm going to be adding a bunch of buttons and text boxes and text blocks that we'll use to display the data that comes in. And resize these windows. First of all, data from the get application data method. Just a couple text boxes that'll tell us that events have fired. Text box to display data that we get from the events. There's a get application data method That button will fire off that method, and a button to clear text boxes. And so we'll open up the code window, and we're going to add some C# on this application also. Again, I'm going to copy paste off a notepad file. Yep. Stumbling around here. We'll get this done. Try again. Okay. There it is. And again, we'll need to add a using statement to reference the conversation namespace. And then I'm going to build the application. And it looks like everything's okay. We'll take a look at this code. And what's interesting on this computer, because it's the receiving computer, is events. So see here we've registered the event handlers for the initial context received and context data received events. And we'll take a look at those event handlers. There's context data received. You can see it's got an event args class with a property that we can use to get data that's received on that event. And then of course there's the initial context received event handler, and again on the event args class, and a property that we can use to get data. We've also got a click event here, which we're going to use to get to run the get application data method. You can see it right there. It's got a single parameter, the app ID. And we'll take a look at the registry editor entry we use to register this application. And there it is. And again, the key value is the app ID that I'm using in the application. And the internal URL is the path to the application, and there's a name value, just like on the other computer. So we're going to go ahead and save this, save and close it, because it will be opened by the incoming IM message. Save it and close it. So we're going to go back to the other computer. This is our sending computer. I'm going to hit F5 and run the application. And we'll click the Start Instant Messaging button control and send an IM message. And I'll just send some simple text. Hey, are you coming to the meeting? And hit enter. Fires the message off. Go to the receiving computer. And we'll see that, there, we didn't get any data. And the reason is that the event probably occurred while the application was opening on this computer. So if we click Get Application Data, you can see that you can use that method to get the initial context data. Back to the receiving computer, we're going to use the Begin Send Initial Context method, and we'll see that it works. Go back to the receiving computer, we'll see that that event occurred, and you can see the data that came in. And now if I clear text boxes and run the Get Application Data method, you can see that the initial context data has been updated by the new data that was sent by the Begin Send Initial Context method. Back to the sending computer, I'm going to send context data this time. Over to the receiving computer, you can see the counter value there and the data that came in on the event. You can see that the data event did fire. Now I'll go ahead and clear text boxes, and you'll be able to see that we still have our initial context data. Hasn't been changed. And we're going to send context data a second time. Back to the receiving computer, you can see that the context data has been updated, or rather that we got new context data. And there it is. Now, in summary, I can tell you that initial context and context data are stored separately. Updating one doesn't affect the other. Each of these data types, initial context and context data, can be updated as often as you need. To return initial context data, you should count on using the getApplicationData method. It's much more reliable than the event. And to return context data, use the context data received event and the context data property off of the event arguments.